Pro-Trump intruders invade the U.S. Capitol for hours.
Inside the House chambers, officers draw their guns with protesters outside the door. Protesters making it to the highly secure Senate floor as well, stopping the count of electoral votes.
The protesters now gone as Congress reconvenes to count the vote.
The violence was quelled. The Capitol is secured, and the people's work continues.
And the sports world weighs in on the chaos at the Capitol.
A big bombshell surrounding the murder mystery involving dead kids and their mother, Lori Vallow Daybell, and her husband, who are behind bars.
We are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges against both Chad and Lori. My heart just dropped.
A police officer recovering after surviving a head-on crash with a suspected drunk driver.
Coronavirus crisis. The Arizona National Guard helps distribute the vaccine as frontline workers get their second shot.
I believe that this is how we return to normal.
Your house on fire. Get out. Move.
And a Valley woman saves her neighbors who had no idea their house was on fire.
90 minutes of news starts right now on 12 News at 9. And we begin with breaking news tonight. The Eloy Police Department issued an Amber Alert for 4 missing children. Officers believe their mother, Melanie Davis, broke a court-ordered custody agreement and left with the kids.
Police believe the children could be in danger right now. The mother was last seen driving a black Chevy Malibu. If you have any information, please call 911. Well, a big story tonight here and across the country. Congress getting back to work after hundreds of President Trump's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol earlier today, clashing with police and disrupting the electoral vote count. Tonight, the protesters have been dispersed from the building, but they're still on Capitol grounds, holding flags and signs. Police officers in riot gear are standing shoulder to shoulder, slowly moving the group away from the Capitol building.
Vice President Mike Pence, who is overseeing tonight's session, says that today's horrific events cannot stand in the way of democracy.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house.
Lawmakers were in the middle of debating electoral votes from Arizona when the riots broke out. Demonstrators broke through barricades, scaled walls, and shattered windows trying to get inside the building. Large groups of protesters were seen wandering through the corridors unchallenged as Capitol complex went into lockdown.
And one of the stories that will linger for days, if not longer, police officers left alone to hold off the angry mob. At least one person was shot and killed inside the Capitol. Officers doing a sweep of the building reported finding several explosive devices on Capitol grounds. Unclear at this hour whether those devices were functional or not, but they were quickly destroyed. Well, at least 13 people have been arrested, and many more arrests could follow as the FBI works to identify those involved in today's riots.
Team 12's Alice Barr joins us from Capitol Hill with the latest on the investigation.
Chaos at the Capitol today as protesters acting on behalf of a defeated president successfully disrupted the time-honored tradition of lawmakers counting electoral votes. Supporters of President Trump quickly overwhelmed and outnumbered heavily armed security officers, making their way onto the floor of both the House and Senate as lawmakers and their staff sheltered and waited hours for help. Vice President Mike Pence was among the first rushed to safety, and minutes later the Capitol was on lockdown as protesters laid siege both inside and out. President-elect Biden issued a strong condemnation.
It's not protest, it's insurrection.
It took more than 3 hours for local police and the National Guard to secure the Capitol complex. As members of Congress reconvened to carry out their constitutional duties, Vice President Pence and Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said what the president would not.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win.
They tried to disrupt our democracy. They failed.
A day focused on tradition, ending tonight with the nation's capital on lockdown. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Well, of course, the president has many supporters here in Arizona, and they were making their voices heard today outside the Arizona State Capitol.
That's right. And our Team 12 Bianca Bono has been there through the evening, and she brings us a snapshot of what happened.
Well, guys, the sun has set on this Protect the Vote, Stop the Steal rally that kicked off around 9 o'clock this morning, and at its peak in the early afternoon, saw a couple thousand Arizonans here. Now, these are supporters of President Trump who wanted to come out here today to be with like-minded people, they tell me, to watch live as Congress met to certify the election results that many people here dispute and claim that there is fraud. We should note, as we've noted before, that there's no evidence of fraud here in Arizona's election. Throughout the day, we saw several speakers take the podium, including Kelly Ward, Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb, even a FaceTime appearance from Paul Gosar. And I had many of you reach out to me asking if those here were aware of what was transpiring in Washington, D.C. And the answer was yes, because there were trucks positioned around Capitol grounds live streaming what was initially Congress meeting, but then, of course, shifted to the chaos outside and then inside the Capitol. I talked to a couple of President Trump's supporters today. Here's what they told me.
If any, will you accept Joe Biden as the next?
I will never accept him. He is not the president of the United States of America. He was the Dominion voting systems that was used. He is not our president, and he will never be our president.
Well, if you saw what went on at our nation's capital, we had to come down and try to support them. And we have a peaceful protest, and what went on for 6 months of burning our nation and terrorizing the citizens. But when your elections no longer work, what's left? That's what's told to me as I was walking around because of my sign.
And again, we should know that there's no evidence of any fraud in our election here in Arizona. We're outside the Capitol. Bianca Bono, 12 News.
All right, Bianca, thank you. And since Bianca filed that report, the protesters have dispersed, and we will have a live report from her coming up on 12 News at 10. But in the meantime, Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego was inside of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. when the riots broke out. Team 12's Bram Resnick has the story.
I asked Congressman Ruben Gallego to walk me through what happened in the House chamber as the rioters got closer. The combat veteran of Iraq told me he left deeply saddened by the fear he saw in a little girl.
I did not realize that, the Capitol Police had been overrun.
Congressman Ruben Gallego thought he heard gunshots outside the House chamber.
And as soon as I saw them locking doors, I took off my jacket. This is why I don't have on my suit, because I thought something was about to go down.
Some members panicked.
One of them took down a hand sanitizer pole, took it apart and made it into a club. Other people were looking for other types of weapons.
Gallego's training told him the House needed to evacuate.
I was really nervous. We have a lot of elderly members. I think there could have been some violence. They were hyperventilating while they were putting on these gas masks. I was trying to tell people to stay calm and breathe slowly.
Finally, rioters at the door, the House was abandoned.
As I was leaving, I turned back and took a picture of the protesters trying to enter the door and having it being blocked by furniture. It looked like something out of a zombie movie.
But there's one image the congressman says he can't forget. A staffer's little girl crying while the riot raged.
I've seen my friends die, but to see a young American feeling threatened by another American, it's disheartening.
In Phoenix, Bram Resnick, 12 News.
Bram, thanks. Other Arizona leaders also weighing in on the shocking turn of events in Washington, condemning the riots. Team 12's Joe Dana joins us with some of their reactions.
Republican Congresswoman Debbie Lesko has been a loyal supporter of President Trump. As she has done in the past, she was hesitant to criticize the president.
Well, this was an awful day for the United States and democracy, and it was very scary. And quite frankly, even though it is de-escalated now, it's still scary. We're in a lockdown mode.
President Trump said to the people who did this, "We love you. You are very special." Do you agree?
I don't always agree with President Trump's the way he says things, and certainly the rhetoric. I would appreciate if he would just say, you need to stop. He did say that the people should go home and be peaceful, and I wish he would have stuck to that.
I asked Lesko if she agrees or not with the president's continuing statements that the election was, quote, stolen. She said she believes there is evidence of irregularities around the country, but she also acknowledged that none of that evidence has been held up in court. Another Republican, former Senator Jeff Flake, has been critical of Lesko and Congressman Andy Biggs and Paul Gosar for not publicly accepting the election results. Joe Dana, 12 News.
All right, Joe, thank you. And tonight we're hearing from several former presidents who were horrified by what they saw on Capitol Hill tonight.
The President Obama released a statement on Twitter saying in part, the violence that gripped the U.S. Capitol was the unsurprising result of 2 months of instigation by President Trump and his enablers. Mr. Obama went on to say that their fantasy narrative has spiraled further and further from reality, and now we see the consequences.
And former President George W. Bush also weighing in on tonight's shocking event, saying in part, the violent assault on the Capitol was undertaken by people whose passions have been inflamed by falsehoods and false hopes. He goes on to say, let the officials elected by the people fulfill their duties and represent our voices in peace and safety.
For more perspective, we want to bring in Team 12's Cameron Cox now. And Cam, even the sports world reacting to what happened in Washington today.
You know, Mark, today was one of those days where you just couldn't focus on any games whatsoever because life was happening. There were meetings, practices, Zooms, games scheduled, but it just really didn't matter as the day went on and on. They just became irrelevant. When we all joined the same team, the human one, we were glued together watching the TV, trying to make sense of what we were all watching at our Capitol.
I started the day thinking about how we were going to guard Lou Williams without fouling him. And suddenly that didn't seem quite as important when I turned the TV on.
Coaches are used to helping others, but on January 6, 2021, many feeling helpless.
When I look at what I'm seeing and what I saw earlier today, I find it hard to, figure out ways to help.
The attack on Capitol Hill hitting too close to home for Suns head coach Monty Williams.
Well, I'm from that area. The first thing I thought about was my mother. And then you think about your, people that that work in the city. I have family members all through D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And so that was where my mind and my heart went.
Coaches and players reacting from all over the country. From the football field.
It's disgusting. People can't be surprised by what's happening because it's been kind of provoked for a long time.
To the basketball court.
This should not be allowed. It's unacceptable. It's America's capital. Should not be able to do what I saw on video.
It basically proves the point about a privileged life, in a lot of ways. I'll say it because I don't think a lot of people want to. Could you imagine today if those were all black people storming the Capitol and what would have happened? So that to me is a picture that's worth 1,000 words for all of us.
The NBA continuing with a full slate of games. The Celtics and Heat deciding to play last minute just to try and bring some joy into people's lives.
I mean, it's really disturbing because we just can't believe what we're seeing.
And in the Suns and Raptors game, players locking arms in a moment of unity.
I'm sad for the kids in our country that have to watch this. Our kids are always watching us for behaviors that should be repeated. And I feel bad for them.
Some powerful words right there for some really good guys, especially Doc Rivers and Monty Williams. Guys, a lot of games tonight. These scores just really didn't seem to matter.
They don't. Not tonight. Yeah. Not on this night. All right, Cam. Thanks.
Well, she is Arizona's closest tie to the White House, but tonight she is out of a job. Stephanie Grisham, the First Lady's chief of staff, submitted her resignation letter this afternoon, effective immediately. Grisham had also served as White House press secretary. While working for the First Lady, Grisham also was a White House press secretary and communications director for almost a year. During that time, she stood out by not making a single on-camera press briefing. Our coverage of today's unprecedented events is far from over. We will bring you the very latest details on tonight's protests in Arizona and in Washington throughout the evening on the free 12 News app.
And still to come on 12 News, a bombshell recording reveals new information in the case against cult mom Lori Vallow Daybell and the disappearance of her children.
The second round of stimulus payments went out. But not everyone has received it yet. The important steps that you need to take to claim your money.
And maybe we can put a smile on your face after all tonight. Chandler Police, they're paying it forward to help a little boy in the valley. Details on their amazing gesture next at 9.
And we hit 70 degrees today, a comfortable evening in progress. It's going to be a cold start tomorrow, but more above average temperatures in the forecast. Find out how long these 70s will stick around coming up in just a few minutes.
A bombshell new recording reveals some big updates in the case against Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband Chad. The couple is in jail in Idaho after Lori's children, who used to live in Arizona, were found dead last year.
Team 12's Erica Stapleton has the latest from Idaho and how the Daybells could soon be facing murder charges.
This recording is the first time we hear prosecutor Rob Wood say he plans to file charges against both Chad and Lori Daybell for conspiracy to commit murder.
I'm just going to tell you right now, we are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges against both Chad and Lori.
The recording from October 2020 is a conversation between Wood and Lori's sister, Summer Shiflett, who says she's a witness for the state and defense in this case. They talk about the discovery of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan's bodies, Lori's relationship with Chad, and the possibility of the death penalty. Both Lori and Chad Daybell's attorneys have filed motions to disqualify Wood based on his conduct in the recording, arguing it could influence Lori's sister's testimony. In court filings, Wood objects to any allegations of misconduct. Here's another part of the recording where Wood talks about Chad Daybell.
He's highly manipulative.
Yeah, I see that.
I'm not going to say he's highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative. He did not care who died, who got hurt. He did not care at all.
At this point, those charges have not been filed and no one is charged in the deaths of Lori's children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Right now, both Chad and Lori are charged with conspiracy to conceal or destroy evidence. We'll have more tonight on 12 News at 10 and on the 12 News app. Erica Stapleton, 12 News.
All right, time to get you up to speed on some of the other stories we're following tonight. Prop 207 may have passed, but it's still illegal to drive around with marijuana in your car, let alone 450 pounds of it. The Pinal County Sheriff's Office pulled over Jesus Juarez for speeding, and they found 21 bundles of pot in the trunk. Juarez was booked into jail on charges of possession, intent to sell, and transportation of marijuana. Cottonwood police are asking for help to find a small plane. It was stolen from the town's airport in the middle of the night last week. Investigators believe the plane and the trailer are worth up to $80,000. If you have any information, call Silent Witness. And a really sweet gesture from the Chandler Police Department. Several officers came together to replace this little boy's stolen wallet. Police believe it was stolen last week after the 6-year-old accidentally dropped it inside a Walmart. The wallet had $200 of Christmas and birthday money inside. The suspect, believed to be a woman, picked up the wallet and walked out of the store. While police searched for the suspect, they also bought the young boy a brand new wallet and then filled it with all of his hard-earned money.
What a great story. Well, still ahead on 12 News, a new push to stop the spread when the next phase of vaccinations is scheduled to start and who's eligible to get one. A Valley police officer receiving plenty of love after a horrific crash over the weekend. And Arizona's children need you. If you are interested in becoming a foster parent, adoptive parent, or a mentor, it's easy to get involved just by going to arizonaschildren.org.
Tonight, a Phoenix police officer is recovering after surviving a head-on crash with a suspected drunk driver who was headed the wrong way.
Team 12's Michael Doudna is here with how the community is rallying around the officer. Michael?
Thankfully, Officer Chase McCants is expected to survive, but faces a long road to recovery after a New Year's Day shift gone wrong.
Involving a PD vehicle.
Just before 6 a.m. New Year's Day, police say Dylan Ray Johnson's white pickup truck was heading the wrong way when it slammed into Officer Chase McCants' police vehicle.
Looks like a wrong-way vehicle hit a PD vehicle.
Officer McCants would be rushed to the hospital with injuries to his hip, shoulder, ribs, jaw, and more. While Johnson, who police say admitted to drinking and smoking weed before the crash, walked away without any serious injuries.
My heart just dropped.
Sergeant Tufan remembers getting the call that one of his officers was involved in a devastating crash. He says since Officer McCants joined the force about a year ago, he's been quiet, always working.
Very humble officer, down to earth, shows up to work.
Now the officer is on his road to recovery as he and his wife have a son and are expecting their newest child.
They're doing the best that they can. His wife Haley is a rock, and I've made her let her know this. She's been there for him.
As we said earlier, Officer McCants is expected to recover, but will need some time and help. And if you would like to help out, well, we have a link to do so on 12news.com. We're in Phoenix. Michael Doudna, 12 News.
Okay, Michael, thanks. The stimulus check rollout didn't go as smoothly as many of us would have liked. The second round of checks left Americans with many questions, most of those focusing on when the check would arrive. And for those who already got their checks, why is it short? Right now, you can track the status of your payment on the IRS website, but be patient. Due to overwhelming demand, the website is slow.
And if you're eligible for unemployment benefits, you can expect to see some extra cash in your bank account soon. Governor Ducey and the Department of Economic Services announced Arizona will be one of the first states to distribute the newly approved unemployment benefits. That means that anyone who is eligible will receive an extra $300 a week. DES says that it will begin issuing payments as early as this week.
All right, time to check in with Lindsay. And Linz, no complaints about the weather.
Not at all. A gorgeous day out there today. We're feeling more like late February. And we've also seen numerous beautiful sunrises and sunsets. Check out the view from Lake Havasu City tonight. We had a few clouds decorating the sky. It led to a vivid sunset this evening. A beautiful day today. A high of 70 in Phoenix, 55 right now in Gila Bend. We're already dropped down into the teens up near the Grand Canyon, 21 in Winslow and 28 the air temperature in Show Low. We are watching the similar pattern as we go throughout the week, where we have numerous storm systems moving into the Pacific Northwest and then missing Arizona to the north. We did see an increase of cloud cover from this particular storm today, but after midnight, these clouds are going to clear and give way to another sunny, dry day tomorrow. And as those skies clear, temperatures are going to drop even more. 14 for the low tonight up at the Grand Canyon, 26 in Prescott, low 40s expected by 7 a.m. tomorrow in the valley. Our sunrise time is at 7:33. Temps will warm up to 48. Full sunshine by 9 a.m. A light northeasterly breeze at 5 miles per hour. And another day of above average temps. We'll hit 71 tomorrow, 54 in Show Low, 66 in Safford, and 52 for the high in Flagstaff. These 70s will continue into the first half of the weekend. We should be in the mid 60s this time of year, so we're getting a treat a little bit early. Let's check out our 7-day forecast, beginning with Flagstaff. A beautiful week of weather, above average temps, at least for the next 2 days. We do have some cooler temperatures moving in for the weekend. 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts expected across the high country Saturday and Sunday. And temps will be a little bit cooler next week, staying in the 40s. In Phoenix, a dry 7-day as well. The next 3 afternoons will reach the 70s, breezy Saturday and Sunday, and then we do make a comeback to the 70s by next Wednesday.
All right, Lindsay, thank you. Well, the Grand Canyon may have met its match, and it's not even on this planet. NASA released this photo of a canyon on Mars, the largest canyon in our solar system. It stretches over 2,500 miles across the Martian equator and is 7 miles deep. According to NASA, if on Earth, this valley would span from New York City to San Francisco. Scientists at the University of Arizona took it with a special camera called HiRISE, which is the most powerful camera ever sent to another planet.
Still ahead on 12 News, the latest on who's jumping in to help make sure the COVID vaccine rollout in Arizona gets done. Welcome back to 12 News at 9. After a terrifying and unimaginable day in Washington, Congress is back at work tonight after hundreds of President Trump's supporters stormed the Capitol, clashing with police and disrupting the electoral vote count. Tonight, the protesters have been dispersed from the building, but are still on the Capitol grounds holding flags and signs. Police officers in riot gear standing shoulder to shoulder, slowly moving the group away from the Capitol.
Vice President Mike Pence, who is overseeing tonight's session, says that today's horrific events cannot stand in the way of democracy.
To those who wreaked havoc in our Capitol today, you did not win. Violence never wins. Freedom wins. And this is still the people's house.
Lawmakers were in the middle of debating electoral votes from Arizona when the riots broke out. Demonstrators broke through barricades, they scaled walls, and even shattered windows trying to get inside the building. Large groups of protesters were seen wandering through the corridors unchallenged as the Capitol complex went into lockdown.
And police officers were left alone for the most part to hold off the angry mob. At least one person was shot and killed inside the Capitol. Officers doing a sweep of the building reported finding several explosive devices on Capitol grounds. It's unclear at this point whether or not those devices were functional, but they were destroyed.
And we are tracking some breaking news tonight. The Eloy Police Department issued an Amber Alert for 4 missing children. Officers believe their mother, Melanie Davis, broke a court-ordered custody agreement and left with the kids.
Police believe the children could be in danger. The mother was last seen driving a black Chevy Malibu. If you have any information, call 911.
And now to the latest on the numbers on the pandemic as the coronavirus continues to spread across Arizona. The Department of Health says that Arizona has recorded nearly 575,000 cases of the virus, and more than 9,400 Arizonans have lost their lives.
Hospitals also are being pushed to the brink with less than 7% of beds available statewide. 58% of those beds are being occupied by COVID patients. And turning now to the vaccine rollout, new video today of Arizona National Guard members helping to administer the vaccine. In addition, the Guard is training volunteers to help administer the vaccine. Those volunteers are mostly retired medical professionals or medical residents.
Team 12's Rachel Cole joins us now with more on the new push to help vaccinate the state.
None of us independently could do it, but if we come together as a group, we're able to pull something like this off.
Dignity healthcare worker Heather James, a pod chief, praising teamwork.
You see folks coming through, some of them are crying, they're so excited, they're cheering when they get to the front and are so excited to be here to get vaccinated. We've been waiting a long time for this.
The goal is to speed up the process of getting Arizonans vaccinated.
Max throughput's about 4,000 a day. That's about our capacity and what we'll continue to do for as long as we need to do it to make sure we get some herd immunity going.
Help coming from every corner of the Grand Canyon state to slow the spread.
Really, if we want to stop the spread, getting everyone vaccinated is the way to go. And we're scheduled to get 3+ million doses to Arizonans as soon as possible.
The National Guard is guiding medical personnel like retired surgeon Clive Grant on proper administration at pod sites across the state.
For me to volunteer to give vaccinations and help the public, I thought if that helps, that's what I wanted to do.
Plus, police and fire departments are maintaining order to help crews keep the lines moving and get COVID-19 shots out.
Our firefighters respond to these calls multiple times a day for COVID, and it's been one of the priorities for us to do whatever we can to support the community in this way, to get as many people vaccinated safely as possible.
They say it takes a village, and the vaccine rollout is no exception. Rachel Cole, 12 News.
Rachel, thank you. Meanwhile, earlier today, ADHS held an event of frontline healthcare workers, including Director Dr. Kara Christ, receiving their second dose of the COVID-19 vaccine.
Team 12's Josh Sanders was there, and I guess Dr. Christ wouldn't take any questions.
That's right, no questions when there are many, as the state has struggled with the vaccine rollout in counties like Maricopa County, and hospitals continue to be overwhelmed with new cases. Today, Dr. Kara Christ and 9 other frontline healthcare workers received the second dose of their Pfizer vaccine. The group was diverse, representing nurses, physicians, fire officials, and the National Guard. The state says through Tuesday, 119,000 people in Arizona have received the first dose of the vaccine, but fewer than 1/3 of the state's vaccines have been administered as new cases rage and hospitals struggle. Nonetheless, today was a moment of hope for these workers as they expressed why the vaccine is so important to them.
It just needs to end. We're tired.
I'm motivated to ensure that the underserved communities and communities of color have access to this vaccine.
I'm really excited about where we're heading and that this is the first step to kind of getting back to normal life.
I care deeply about the members of my family, and I believe that receiving this vaccination will help ensure that I can be by my wife's side when my son is born in March.
And again, Dr. Kara Christ left immediately after receiving her second dose of the vaccine, taking no questions when Arizona is once again ground zero for the virus. We're in downtown Phoenix. Josh Sanders, 12 News.
Josh, thank you. And taking a look at Bloomberg's official COVID-19 vaccine tracker, according to their latest numbers, 1.64% of Arizonans have received the vaccine.
If you look across the country, the state that's making the most progress is West Virginia, with 3.4% of their residents receiving the vaccine. The worst is Kansas at less than 0.7%. Hospitals across the country are sounding the alarm as rising COVID numbers push them to the breaking point.
And it comes as federal officials work to speed up vaccination rollout, saying starting this week, pharmacies can begin to administer shots. NBC's Sarah Dolliff has the story.
Tonight, healthcare systems battling COVID from the brink.
We are truly in a crisis mode right now.
Nationwide, one person dying of the virus every 34 seconds. An LA hospital activating its crisis care standards, not yet rationing care, but preparing to make difficult decisions. Others forced to cancel surgeries for non-COVID patients.
It's very tough, I think, for somebody to tell you that you cannot get a hospital room for something that you desperately need.
Georgia, now the latest state to confirm a case of the more infectious UK strain, as federal and state officials work to increase a slower than planned vaccine rollout.
No excuses. We should have gotten 20 distributed and 20 into the arms of people. By 20, I mean 20 million.
Encouraging states to open vaccinations to more priority groups simultaneously and speeding up a plan to administer shots in pharmacies.
These partners can then administer vaccines to particular groups, like those over a certain age or in certain occupations, and eventually to the general public.
Walgreens and CVS say they'll finish first rounds of vaccinations in long-term care facilities by the end of January. Meanwhile, healthcare workers in Arizona beginning to receive second doses. And in one North Carolina county, long lines at a first-come, first-serve event for those 75 and older. Vaccines in high demand as case numbers and deaths continue to climb. Sarah Dolliff, NBC News.
Arizona Senator Mark Kelly is also speaking out about the vaccine rollout. He talked exclusively with the Today Show's Savannah Guthrie about his frustrations with how slow it's been going.
Are you disappointed with this vaccine rollout, and where do you place the blame?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. We needed a national plan. We didn't have that. Some states don't have a very good plan. Arizona, I think, is one of them. We have to do better. We know this vaccine is safe and it works. It's the thing that's going to get us to the herd immunity we need. People need to be vaccinated when it's available.
We'll have more from her conversation with Senator Kelly and former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords coming up on Friday. It marks the 10th anniversary of the Tucson shooting. Giffords also opens up about how she's continued to find hope and even humor in the darkest of places. The exclusive interview is coming up Friday on Today.
And Canada is cracking down on COVID. That country is now requiring anyone flying in to show a negative COVID test. Now, that test needs to have been conducted no more than 72 hours before flying in. The country's transport minister says that passengers will not be allowed to board planes bound for Canada without one. He says it's an additional layer of protection. Canada also requires a 14-day quarantine when entering the country, and that rule will stay in place even after a negative COVID test is shown.
Vowing never to concede. Coming up, our Verified team fact checks the president's speech to supporters today, just hours before many of them stormed the Capitol.
Then the vaccine may be arriving in bigger bundles, but COVID-19 cases are hitting hospitals hard all across the nation and also right here in Arizona. See how those frontline medical workers are coping.
Then, as we look at the images from today's riots, we'll be looking at what happened today from a historical perspective and what it could mean for future generations of Americans. Today's breach of the Capitol happened just hours after President Trump addressed supporters, vowing that he would never concede. Our Verify team fact-checked that speech. Here's Jason Puckett.
The president spoke for more than an hour Wednesday, continuing to claim that he had actually won the election because Joe Biden's victory was the result of fraud. Now, it's our job to provide you with facts. The president made many false statements in that speech. Here are the facts we can verify.
So in Pennsylvania, you had 205,000 more votes than you had voters.
This is a false claim by the president. His numbers aren't accurate. The state of Pennsylvania shows a total of 6,915,283 votes, and Pennsylvania has 8,599,294 registered voters. So the president's claim that there were 200,000 more votes than voters in Pennsylvania is false. There were actually 1.6 million registered voters who didn't vote in Pennsylvania.
66,000 votes in Georgia were cast by individuals under the legal voting age.
This is false. Here's Gabriel Sterling, a Republican official in the Georgia Secretary of State's office earlier this week.
Then there was the claim that 66,248 people below the age of 18 voted. The actual number is 0. Let me be clear, 66,000 versus 0. And the reason we know that is because the dates are on the voter registration.
And finally, the president's claim that VP Pence can change the electoral vote.
And Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution and for the good of our country. And if you're not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
But the vice president can't do that. The Constitution and 3 U.S. Code 15 give Congress the power to certify or object to electoral votes. The vice president's job is just to oversee the process. On Wednesday, Mike Pence published this statement saying, quote, "I do not believe that the founders of our country intended to invest the vice president with unilateral authority to decide which electoral votes should be counted during the joint session of Congress, and no vice president in American history has ever asserted such authority." Again, the president spoke for more than an hour. We have more claims from his speech up on our website. For you verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
All right, Lindsay, our daytime temperatures are absolutely gorgeous, but the morning and nighttime temps, any chance that those will start to maybe feel a little bit more mild?
Not in the next couple of days. Our morning lows will continue to drop into the 40s. We're looking at teens up across the high country. It is January. In fact, these morning lows are normal for this time of year. We actually shouldn't be in the 70s this time of year, but we had several days of that this week. We also had a gorgeous sunset out there tonight. We had a few clouds in the sky to help make it a little bit more colorful. This was the look in Goodyear. And typically when you have a couple clouds in the sky like we did this evening, the sunset looks a little bit more vibrant. Unfortunately, those clouds will be clearing tonight, lending itself to a cooler night, especially across the high country where we're looking at teens. We're already in the teens up at the Grand Canyon. 21 the air temperature in Winslow, 40 right now in Payson. We have those couple clouds from a storm system up in the Pacific Northwest. The moisture will all stay to the north, will remain dry with clearing skies after midnight. A chilly night, but then we're going to warm up very quickly. And mainly, you'll see a big difference between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. with that warm up. 40 tonight in Sedona, teens expected in Flag, low 20s in Show Low, and 35 for the low in Globe. Tomorrow, another gorgeous day, feeling more like late February with highs in the 70s across the lower deserts all the way down to Tucson, 54 in Show Low, 47 sunshine in Page, and low 60s expected in Kingman. The probability of seeing 70-degree readings for the first week in January is just a 35% chance, and we're going to do it for 5 days in a row this week through Saturday. Here's a look at our Flagstaff 7-day forecast. The next 2 afternoons in the 50s, which is above average. Definitely a cool down for the weekend. Low 40s with 20 to 30 mile per hour wind gusts expected. A beautiful 7-day for the Phoenix area. Highs in the 70s through Saturday. A little bit breezier this weekend.
All right, Linz, thanks. Arizona ground zero for the big surge in COVID cases. How local hospitals are facing the huge hurdles ahead. Next.
Then caught on camera, a woman in her bathrobe beating on the front door of a Valley home. Why she's being called a hero tonight.
And minutes away on 12 News at 10, we have breaking news involving today's chaos at the Capitol. The protesters are gone, but Congress is working late into the night to certify Joe Biden's presidential win. We'll have a live report from Capitol Hill and Arizona's capital, where protesters have been voicing their concerns for most of the day.
Now to the latest numbers on the pandemic as the coronavirus continues to spread across Arizona. The Department of Health says that Arizona has recorded more than 567,000 cases of the virus and more than 9,300 Arizonans have lost their lives.
And hospitals are being pushed to the brink with less than 8% of beds now available across the state. And 57% of those beds are being occupied by COVID patients. As Arizona leads the country in new COVID infections, hospitals are overwhelmed and anticipate the surge to continue following the holidays.
Team 12's Trisha Hendricks explains what medical professionals are prepping for in the days ahead.
1 in 4 Arizonans who are tested for the virus are confirmed positive for COVID-19.
Banner Health's Dr. Marjorie Bessel says this week, Arizona surpassed all other states with the highest rate of COVID-19 infections.
We are just now starting to see the effects of Christmas holiday gatherings here in our hospitals and don't anticipate seeing the spike in cases due to the New Year's holiday for another 1 to 2 weeks.
I've never personally seen anything like this.
Dr. Michael White from Valleywise Health echoing the same concerns.
The wait may be anywhere from, a few hours to upwards of 24 to 48 hours in the emergency department until we're able to move somebody from the emergency department up into a hospital bed.
Hospitals remain open to everyone who needs care, and the triage addendum of the Arizona Crisis Standards Care Plan hasn't been activated, but restrictions are still in place.
Visitors are not permitted, with few exceptions. Patients will experience longer wait times.
Until the vaccine reaches more people, the uncontrolled spread of COVID-19 is inevitable.
Our predictive models indicate that it will only get worse.
So they're asking for new enforcement measures to reduce the spread.
Like a statewide mask mandate, a curfew, stopping indoor dining, canceling large gatherings.
In Phoenix, Trisha Hendricks, 12 News.
But it isn't only here in Arizona. Hospitals all across the country are feeling overwhelmed. In some areas, patients are actually being turned away simply because there aren't enough resources to care for them.
And with an even bigger virus spike expected in the latest holiday or from the latest holidays, doctors say that our healthcare system won't be able to cope, and that will impact all of us. Here's NBC's Erin McLaughlin.
After weeks of holiday travel, mass gatherings, and anti-mask protests, doctors in Southern California are sounding the alarm.
We haven't yet seen a post-December surge. If we do, on top of where we are now, we will go under. The healthcare system will collapse.
Here, morgues are overflowing. The California National Guard now called in to help transport bodies. In LA, hospitals are so packed, ambulances sometimes must wait up to 8 hours to offload patients and have been told not to transport patients with virtually no chance of survival.
If you think that COVID-19 is not going to affect you or your loved ones, you're absolutely wrong. We continue to see patients following car crashes, falls. Patients still come in with heart attacks and strokes, and we're simply running out of the resources, staff, and personnel to care for these other medical emergencies.
The crisis in care spreading from coast to coast. In Arkansas, overwhelmed hospitals are being forced to divert ambulances to other states.
That transport would take in excess of 6.5 hours to complete.
And that's because there was nowhere else for this patient to go.
Right.
In New York, hospitalizations are up 96% in the last month. It's now the fourth state to confirm a case of the more contagious UK virus strain. The patient, a 60-year-old man, is affiliated with this jewelry store in Saratoga Springs. Officials believe he got the virus through community spread. In Washington state, a COVID outbreak at this Vancouver hospital is suspected of infecting 30 patients and staff. And in Florida, a warning straight from the ICU.
I didn't wear a mask. I should have.
Chuck Stacy was hospitalized with COVID on New Year's Day. He now needs a machine to help him breathe.
I believed that it was all going to go away, that it was political. You don't want to end up like me.
And you may remember the stark sight of the medical ship, the USN Mercy, arriving in Los Angeles at the beginning of the pandemic. County officials have now petitioned the Navy to send the ship's medical staff back. Doctors say they desperately need more medical personnel to handle the explosion of cases that they're seeing.
Incredible moments caught on camera. A Valley woman saves her neighbors who had no idea their house was on fire.
In just a few minutes on 12 News at 10, breaking news, live team coverage of the chaos at the Capitol today and the historical significance of the unprecedented chain of events.
And the bombshell audio recording regarding Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband tied to the death of her children. New details and insights minutes away on 12 News at 10. Right now on 12 News at 9, a Valley neighbor is being hailed a hero after she saved the family next door from a house fire.
The dramatic moments all caught on camera. Team 12's Bianca Bono has the story.
Ring doorbell video capturing a frantic Carolyn Polish. Carolyn banging on her neighbor's door in Avondale around 7:30 in the morning on New Year's Day because she saw something they didn't.
I could see a little flicker, but thought I was seeing things. And I just took off running. And when I came around, the fire was coming out of the side of the entry and also out of the top of the garage.
Flames coming out of the home as Carolyn ran to the front door. The Salgado family asleep at the time, only waking up to Carolyn's knocking.
Your house on fire. Get out. Move.
When she woke us up and she was banging, there was essentially no smoke in the house. Once we came out, like towards the living room, you could see it kind of coming out of the walls and the vents.
Nicole Salgado and her husband grabbing their 4 children, safely getting out.
You guys go to my house.
And it was just in time.
Once the roof did come down, that's when all the smoke came out. By that time, it could have been a different story.
The Salgado's home suffering extensive damage. The community, though, rallying behind them, already raising more than $30,000 through a GoFundMe page.
It's been amazing.
The Salgados now working to rebuild, just grateful to be alive.
She saved our life, and we will always be thankful to her.
A reminder of the importance of looking out for your neighbor.
Things happen for a reason, and we're meant to be a certain spot.
Bianca Bono, 12 News.
Right now on 12 News at 10, breaking news. Unprecedented chaos at the U.S. Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Pro-Trump rioters storming the building.
We've been hearing flashbangs.
Tear gas has been deployed.
The National Guard regaining control, allowing lawmakers to resume the vote count.
Freedom wins, and this is still the people's house.
Congress in session at this late hour after the chaotic clash at the Capitol as lawmakers counted the Electoral College vote.
Tonight, 4 people are dead, including a woman who was shot by police. 3 others died from medical emergencies during the melee. Right now, there is a heavy police presence at the Capitol as lawmakers resume the count.
And tonight, the White House and Senate are upholding Arizona's Electoral College. Team 12's Whitney Wild joins us.
There is finally calm here in Washington, D.C. after a day of chaos. Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, where law enforcement has secured the grounds, business is underway, the business of certifying those electoral votes.
For even in the wake of unprecedented violence and vandalism at this Capitol, the elected representatives of the people of the United States have assembled again.
The counting of the Electoral College votes resuming Wednesday night.
We will not be kept out of this chamber by thugs, mobs, or threats.
After rioters tore through the pristine halls of the Capitol, sowing chaos and leaving an ominous message right on the desk of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
This assault is just that. It shows the weakness of those who had to show through violence what their message was.
The attempted coup is the first time the U.S. Capitol has been breached since the British attacked and burned the building in August of 1814. Arrests have been made, pipe bombs have been found outside the DNC, RNC, and the Capitol, and a woman has died after being shot inside the Capitol.
I just remember the sense of shock and sorrow that somebody just died and did not need to die because she didn't have a weapon. She wasn't being violent in any way.
Riot authorities have moved in on the mobs, pushing them away from the Capitol. There is updated information tonight. 4 people have died as a result of these incident today. That woman who was shot by police, as well as 3 other people who died due to circumstances surrounding the protests here today. Further, Metropolitan Police say 52 people were arrested. In Washington, I'm Whitney Wild reporting.
This is Mark. I would imagine that there are many people around the world looking at this situation today saying, wow, it was really easy for these people to break into the Capitol today. Has there been any response tonight about how ill-prepared Capitol Hill police were to stop this mob?
So we're learning a little bit from law enforcement who is actually on the ground, and it sounds like it was a culmination of a few things. It sounds like Capitol Police really believed that they were going to have this under control because there were actual physical barriers around the Capitol. So that was the first thing. The second thing was that they did not anticipate that this would explode the way that it did. You can criticize that decision because there are people who might say, of course it would have exploded like this. Protests turn into riots all the time. We've seen that for several years now in this country. So over the next couple days, there are going to be a lot of deep dives, a lot of after action reports. But there are a few things that we know now, which is they were woefully undermanned. I mean, they just simply did not have the manpower to take on the amount of protesters there were. And then additionally, there was a very poor amount of communication. And then finally, when you saw later on in the day just floods of other law enforcement pouring in from other agencies, one of the problems there was that they were waiting to be asked to help Capitol Police. So there was a communication issue of when Capitol Police needed help, how to actually get authorities to their side and make sure that the response was in an organized way. So again, the subsequent days are going to be very important to figure out how exactly this happened and how they were so woefully unprepared.
All right, Whitney Wild live for us from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much. The riots today have caused at least one major resignation in the White House. Stephanie Grisham, the First Lady's chief of staff. Grisham, who used to work for former Arizona Attorney General Tom Horne, had also served as the White House press secretary. Her resignation is effective immediately.
And some of the president's top aides, including National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien, are also considering resigning. The list also includes the Deputy National Security Advisor and the Deputy Chief of Staff. None of them have responded to requests for comment so far. And as chaos broke out in the Capitol, Trump supporters in Arizona also were rallying against the election results, arguing without evidence that the election was stolen. Team 12's Nyella Charles is live for us at the Capitol tonight. Nyella?
The Department of Public Safety actually just wrapped up fencing the area around the state capitol in response to today's rally. Protesters have since gone home. They haven't been here for a couple of hours, but they say still they will not accept the results of the election. While rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol in D.C. in an attempt to stop the transfer of power, Trump supporters here in Phoenix echoed the same sentiments. The protesters in Arizona remained nonviolent, but said they too will not concede.
The process wasn't clean. It wasn't a clean process. And that's why you have these people standing.
The president and his supporters have failed to provide proof for fraudulent election claims. But that's not stopping this crowd, some armed, to come here in support of him, vowing to stop the steal of the election. Local officials are here too. Kelly Ward, the chair of the Arizona Republican Party, and Pinal County Sheriff Mark Lamb both spoke at the rally. But non-protesters in Arizona voiced their shock at what they see in D.C.
To see people, violent and storming the Capitol, a symbol of democracy, it's sad that people kind of felt like that's the only way they can express themselves.
People support the man instead of the Constitution.
This is one of the few protesters that agreed to speak to us. He supports the president, but says some of the language here worries him.
They'll take out these governors and senators that are crooked. They'll drive right through their gates at their house, is what they've said.
But protesters here Wednesday left peacefully. Still, they are frustrated.
When your elections no longer work, what's left?
In a tweet today, the governor saying the incident at the Capitol is wrong and has no place in our form of government. Now, meanwhile, in an abundance of caution, all state Capitol workers here have been asked to work from home tomorrow. We're live in Phoenix. Nyella Charles, 12 News.
Nyella, thanks. Lawmakers from across the country are continuing to weigh in on the shocking scenes in Washington.
Team 12's Joe Dana is talking tonight with former Arizona Senator Jeff Flake. Joe?
Former Republican Senator Jeff Flake has been in the minority among Republican colleagues in that he's been highly critical of President Trump and his rhetoric for years. Today, Flake said that today's events fall squarely on the president's shoulders.
To have a mob basically storming the Capitol, breaking windows to get in, with guns in some cases, just off the House floor. I don't think the Capitol's ever seen anything like that. And so it was heartbreaking.
We heard the president say to those people, "We love you. You are very special."
Well, he should have said early on, "Get out of the Capitol." And he should have been forceful, and he wasn't. He waited. And first of all, to stand and utter falsehoods again and again about a stolen election. It wasn't stolen. He keeps doing that. Even the video he put out from the White House to try to supposedly get them away from the Capitol, he repeated those falsehoods again.
And it should be noted, no election official across the country, Republican or Democrat, have validated any of these allegations of widespread election fraud. And in fact, dozens of challenges in the courts have also been dismissed. Joe Dana, 12 News.
All right, Joe, thank you. The images of rioters taking over the U.S. Capitol are shocking the nation.
Team 12's Mitch Carr is taking a look at the historical context to see what's unfolding. Mitch?
ASU professor and historian Brooks Simpson told me today that violently attacking Capitol buildings has happened plenty of times in U.S. history. It's just that the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. has never before been the target, at least not by American citizens.
No, not the United States Capitol. There have been state capitals that have been stormed. New Orleans during Reconstruction
for example. But this is new.
According to Professor Simpson, the last violent attack on the U.S. Capitol took place in 1814. The British invaded Washington, D.C. as part of the War of 1812. The Confederate Army never made it to Washington, D.C. during the Civil War, and no foreign power has attacked the Capitol since the British. Today was the first time ever that American citizens attacked the American Capitol building in Washington.
This is a case of Americans assaulting an American institution of government in what we would all identify as an act of terrorism.
When the British invaded Washington, D.C. back in 1814, they also burnt down the White House, or as it was called at the time, the Presidential Mansion. Mitch Carr, 12 News.
Mitch, thanks. You can get the latest details on the chaos at the Capitol and the certification vote overnight on the free 12 News app. And, of course, tomorrow morning on Today in AZ, beginning at 4:30.
And now to some breaking news happening right here in Arizona. An Amber Alert has been issued for 4 children in Eloy, from Eloy. They are 10-year-old Matthew Davis, 10-year-old Michael Davis, 13-year-old DeAndre Davis, and 15-year-old Desiree Watson.
They were last seen yesterday. The alert was issued after their mother, Melanie Watson, failed to comply with a court order about custody and has not complied with DCS or law enforcement. The woman was last seen driving a 2020 Chevy Malibu with temporary license plates on it, 103712B. If you have any information on where the kids might be or if you've seen the car, call 911.
Still ahead on 12 News at 10, new information in the case of Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband Chad. The new charges prosecutors are considering.
The coronavirus getting worse in Arizona, and we have the latest on the rollout of the vaccine for our state.
And the riots in Washington having a wide impact across the country, and athletes are weighing in tonight.
And almost $500 million is up for grabs this week. How you can get your hands on that huge jackpot.
And Lindsay takes a look at our weekend weather when 12 News at 10 comes right back.
An unbelievable day in Washington. 12 News at 10 is back. And we want to take another look back at our breaking news, the riots in Washington. Hundreds of supporters of President Trump swarming the Capitol today as Congress was meeting to count the electoral votes and to finalize Joe Biden's election as president.
The Senate and House representatives were evacuated, eventually reconvening after the Capitol was cleared. Now, all of this happening after President Trump spoke at a rally in D.C. today. One woman was shot by a member of law enforcement inside the Capitol and later died. 3 others died from medical emergencies.
Right now, a curfew is in place in Washington until tomorrow morning. Also developing tonight, a bombshell new recording reveals some big updates in the case against Lori Vallow Daybell and her husband, Chad.
The couple is in jail in Idaho after Lori's children, who used to live here in Arizona, were found dead last year. Team 12's Erica Stapleton has the latest from court in Idaho and how Chad and Lori could soon be facing charges connected to murder.
At this point, no one's been charged with the killing of J.J. Vallow or Tylee Ryan, but a new recording reveals the state's plans for new charges and the death penalty.
We are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges.
Prosecutor Rob Wood disclosing his plans for Chad and Lori Vallow Daybell.
We have enough evidence to prosecute him, and we are. The case against your sister is stronger.
As he talks with Summer Shiflett, Lori Vallow Daybell's sister, she's meeting with him in October 2020 before she meets with Chandler police. Her attorney is recording the conversation.
We know that this is not the same Lori.
Shiflett's attorney says they thought this was a meet and greet, but turned the recording over to Lori's attorney after hearing what Wood had to say about him.
Once we file further charges, she will be appointed counsel who will know what they're doing.
And what Wood says about Chad Daybell.
I'm not going to say he's highly intelligent, but you don't have to be highly intelligent to be highly manipulative.
This recording is at the center of a motion to disqualify Wood as prosecutor. Both Chad and Lori's attorneys accusing him of misconduct.
Your sister truly believes that everything she's done has been done in righteousness.
Daybell's attorney also calls that religious talk into question, saying it could cause Shiflett to show favor toward the state. Wood objects to any allegations of misconduct.
I don't take any joy in doing anything that's going to harm her. I don't take joy in her spending her life in prison.
Shiflett also asks Wood about the death penalty. He tells her he doesn't want to pursue it, but it's not off the table.
I have no desire to do that.
The hearing will continue Friday when a judge should make a decision on whether or not to disqualify Rob Wood. In Phoenix, Erica Stapleton, 12 News.
All right, Erica, thank you. And now to the latest on the coronavirus in Arizona. Today, the Department of Health Services announced more than 7,200 new cases, and sadly, 127 more Arizonans passed away from the virus. Across Arizona, just 7% of ICU beds are open, and 61% of ICU patients have COVID-19.
To show you the magnitude of where we're at right now with COVID, in the first 6 days of the year, there have already been 54,000 cases of coronavirus.
And these numbers dire. On the same day, ADHS held an event where frontline workers, including their director, Dr. Kara Christ, got their second dose of the vaccine. The group was diverse and included nurses, physicians, fire officials, and National Guard. The state says that through Tuesday, 119,000 people have gotten their first dose of the vaccine. But fewer than a third of the state's vaccines have been administered as new cases spike and hospitals fill up.
Nonetheless, today was a moment of hope for these workers, and they expressed why the vaccine is so important to them.
It just needs to end. We're tired.
I'm motivated to ensure that the underserved communities and communities of color have access to this vaccine.
I'm really excited about where we're heading and that this is the first step to kind of getting back to normal life.
I care deeply about the members of my family, and I believe that receiving this vaccination will help ensure that I can be by my wife's side when my son is born in March.
But Dr. Christ left immediately after getting her second dose, not taking any questions from reporters.
CVS says that it's on its track to complete the first dose of coronavirus vaccinations in skilled nursing facilities by late January. Vaccinations started in 36 states and Washington, D.C. last week. CVS is now administering vaccines in skilled nursing facilities in 49 states.
It's expected to complete the first of 2 doses by January the 25th. CVS also doing vaccinations in nearly 31,000 assisted living facilities.
Vaccines are not available at CVS pharmacy locations, but the company says they will eventually be available at all stores nationwide.
Well, what's to smile about? How about the weather?
The weather, it's so beautiful out there, feeling more like late February. High temperatures in the 70s and will remain in the 70s through Saturday in the valley. On top of that, we've had some beautiful sunrises and sunsets all week long. This was the look out at Lake Pleasant tonight. Gorgeous silhouettes of the saguaros there, vibrant colors with a little bit of cloud cover over the state. Those clouds will clear as we go through the overnight. We're at 55 right now in Phoenix, 20 in the Grand Canyon, 23 in Show Low, and skies becoming mostly clear as we go through the overnight. 7 a.m. we're around 44 degrees, and then we'll quickly warm up to 58 by 11 a.m. and back up to 70 to 71 in the valley tomorrow. A cool night tonight, though. These are our approximate 7 a.m. temperatures around the state, typically when we see our morning low. 23 tonight in Show Low, 35 in Payson and Globe, 47 out toward Bullhead City. And tomorrow, less cloud cover. It's going to be a beautiful sunny day. Wind speeds also pretty light throughout the day tomorrow, even for the high country, topping out in the low 60s from Payson over into Sedona and Prescott. Quartzsite will peak at 68 degrees tomorrow, and 3 more days to go in the valley with highs in the 70s. We should be in the mid 60s this time of year. So far in 2021, no rain out at Sky Harbor. We're 1800ths below average. We should have 1800ths by this point. But unfortunately, through the end of the month, through the third week of the month, we are looking at above average temps to persist and below average precip. At this point, it doesn't look like we see any measurable rain in the immediate forecast. Here's a look at our Flagstaff 7-day. 2 days with highs in the 50s. Breezy this weekend, a return to the low 40s. As we look at our Tucson forecast, we'll have a couple more days in the 70s, and those 70s do return next week as well. And we'll see the exact same thing in Phoenix. We're in the 70s through Saturday, and 70s return next Wednesday.
Looks awesome, Lindsay. Thanks. Ahead on 12 News at 10, even the sun's reacting to the riots on Capitol Hill.
And Arizona's children need your help. If you're interested in becoming a foster parent, an adoptive parent, or a mentor, it's easy to get involved. You can go to arizonaschildren.org.
They didn't come back. They didn't come back. Mic check. They didn't come back. Like, how do you live with that at night? Yeah, I got you. Well, kind of. This IB's terrible up here.
And welcome back to 12 News at 10. It's time for sports with Team 12's Cameron Cox. And Cam, the news has been heavy today. How have the athletes and coaches been responding to what's been going on in Washington, D.C.?
So many responding today, as we kind of showed you throughout the evening, even right here in our own backyard before the Suns game tonight. Suns and Raptors holding a moment of unity. Both teams locking arms during the national anthems. Players and coaches say this was something that was just on their heart following the pro-Trump riots at the Capitol.
They wanted to do something that everybody agreed on, but also understanding that, people are watching. And so this was, I think, the best way for them to show a sign of unity, symbolic, hopefully an example for our country, as many people watch basketball as a distraction and a release.
Just unity, togetherness, shows that we're all one big family. The NBA is one big family. And we just want people to see that, no color matters. It's just we're here unified as one.
There was a game today, and the Suns played really good, shooting lights out of the gym, knocking down 21 threes, shooting 53% from deep. Suns' largest lead was 14. All 5 starters in double figures. It just kept raining threes. Book had 24. Suns beat Toronto 123-115. They're 6-2, second best record in the NBA. They hit the road for a 3-game road trip starting in Detroit on Friday. Speaking of games, the Coyotes opened the season in 8 days. The team announcing they will allow a limited capacity for January home games. About 3,500 fans. Season ticket holders will get first priority. Coyotes open the season a week from tomorrow at home against the Sharks. And we're finally hearing from Patrick Peterson after the Cardinals missed the playoffs for the 5th consecutive year. P2 talking on his podcast, All Things Covered. He's entering free agency, coming off really an up and down year. Pat wants to play at least 5 more years, and hopefully it's here.
I would love to, but at the end of the day, we have to see, because the ball's in their court now. We have to see what they offer or what direction they want to go in. And I believe the resume speaks for itself. So, at the end of the day, like I said, the ball's in their court.
Yes, it is. P2 has said multiple times he wants to finish his career in Arizona, but Mark, it will only be if the price is right.
Right. Well, what's your guess?
No.
Yeah. Kind of agree.
Yeah.
All right, Cam, thanks. Just ahead on 12 News at 10, a huge jackpot up for grabs in just a couple of days. It's worth $500 million.
And before we go tonight, we want to take one last look at our breaking news. The riots in Washington, D.C. Hundreds of supporters of President Trump storming the U.S. Capitol as the Senate and House were meeting to count the Electoral College vote and confirm Joe Biden as the next president. Biden called this an insurrection and an assault on democracy.
One woman was shot and killed by a member of law enforcement outside of Nancy Pelosi's office. 3 others died from medical emergencies. The House and Senate were evacuated and the Electoral College count was paused. They reconvened around 6 o'clock this evening, Arizona time.
Of course, we'll continue to cover this for you and bring you the very latest overnight in the 12 News app and tomorrow morning on Today in AZ.
Well, finally from the night team, some good news. The Mega Millions jackpot is up to nearly $500 million.
That sounds pretty good. Well, no one won the jackpot in Tuesday's drawing, pushing the prize from $447 million to an estimated $490 million. This would be the 8th largest jackpot in Mega Millions history. The drawing will be held on Friday.
And despite the jackpot rolling over, almost 2 million people still won some money yesterday.
And they have to get a ticket for this one. Well, thanks everyone for putting your trust in us. And remember, we are always on at 12news.com and our social media.